webinar is entitled Sustainability in Your Everyday Life. Our presenter today is Enid Cardinal, Senior Sustainability Advisor to the President here at RIT. In her unique role, Enid is responsible for facilitating a campus culture of sustainability with respect to operations, curriculum, and research, developing metrics for the university's progress in sustainability, and directing RIT's efforts to fulfill its commitment to climate neutrality by 2030. Prior to joining the RIT community, Enid was the director of the Office of Sustainability at Illinois State University. There, she expanded the alternative transportation options for the community, authored Illinois State's inaugural sustainability report, established an annual workshop on sustainability across the curriculum, and launched a community-wide food waste composting program. She's also worked as a consultant on projects for organizations like Audubon International and Calvert, a socially responsible investment company. After completing her undergraduate degree, Enid spent a year in AmeriCorps NCCC and later served as a crew leader for the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps. She's a LEED accredited professional and from Bingham University and a master's degree in environmental policy from Bard College. She currently serves on the Board of Trustees of the Central and Western New York chapter of the Nature Conservancy. Today, our distinguished presenter will make sustainability less of a hot topic media buzzword and more of a concept that you can embrace and integrate into your daily life, both at home and on the job. You'll see that sustainability applies to more than just the environment, and you'll gain an understanding of the trends in sustainability, where it's been, where it's going, and its impact on our lives. That's a lot to cover in a short amount of time, so let's get started. Enid, it's all yours.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Just want to make sure that my audio is working. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, well, I'm pleased to join everyone today, and obviously this is a topic that I love to talk about, so I'm excited for the opportunity to share some of my perspective on sustainability and how it can relate to your life. So just a quick overview, kind of the structure for this webinar. I want to make sure that we start out on the same common language and understanding of sustainability. It's used a lot in a lot of different ways, so I'm just going to create a common definition for us as we go forward. Then I'll talk briefly about trends that we're seeing in the field of sustainability, and then we'll bring that home and make that more personal and how you can take some of this information into your daily lives at home or at work. So to start with, the most commonly used definition, widely recognized, is from the Brundtland Commission, which is sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It's a beautifully written sentence. It's a statement that everyone can embrace, and I think that it would be difficult for someone to argue against something like this, but the challenge is really turning those words into something that goes beyond a big picture concept, into something that we can understand and why this is important. So, this is a graph of the U.S. or of the world's population over time, and you notice it's an exponential growth curve towards the end there. In October of 2012, we reached 7 billion people on the planet. When my parents were in school in the 1950s, less than half of that population existed. Our population has grown dramatically, and it's projected to grow to over 9 billion people by 2050. The challenge comes in the fact that the home that we live on, planet Earth, has not changed in size. So our education, even I remember when I was in high school studying economics, that basic theory was assume unlimited resources when making these decisions, economic decisions, or understanding concepts of economy. The challenge is a lot of our structures have been built on that premise of assume unlimited resources. Yet we have this limited planet with an increasing number of humans on the planet, and we have the capacity and have been impacting that environment since we've been in existence. let me put this into a context that people might recognize more readily. So at RIT, I'm sure you're very familiar with that lovely deer population that we have. And probably all across upstate New York and most of the East Coast, deer can be a bit of a nuisance at times. We know how to control them. We encourage hunting to maintain that population. And why do we do that? Because otherwise they would decimate their environment because their population would grow to enormous sizes. Humans are an animal as well as deer. So we have that same impact on our environment. So when we look at this planet, we have to think mindfully as to how we're consuming resources so that those future generations have resources to consume. Oftentimes people talk about sustainability in terms of environment. The world has gone through 5 major species extinctions, and we're currently in our 6th. The planet has continued to stay here. What has disappeared are those species. So sustainability is really about the well-being of our species today and in future generations. So I want to change the conversation from just speaking about the environment, but to start thinking about humans and our well-being. So this is a slide I absolutely love. This website is called reliableprosperity.net. This graphic helps break down some of these concepts and show how they're all interconnected. The 3-pronged stool that we often talk about, society, environment, economy, or as it's pictured here, equity, ecology, and economy. It breaks all of these aspects into smaller bites for you to be able to take a look at to help better understand the interconnectedness of them. If you go to this website, every single one of these bubbles you can click on and delve in a little bit deeper. So I always like to show that to encourage people to take a look. So now that we're on the same page as far as what sustainability is, really focusing on human well-being and understanding that our well-being is inextricably linked to the health of our planet and our physical and natural environments that we live in. Trends in sustainability that we're seeing currently, climate change. There are a number of impacts that we're seeing tied to climate change currently. We've seen many reports coming out in this past year, the White House's most recent announcement, and actually even the World Economic Forum just put out the 2014 top global risks, top 10 global risks. Climate change falls up on there and many of the subsets tied to it. So energy security being one of those issues that we talk about. Resiliency thinking. As we saw with Hurricane Sandy, we have major storms coming that impact our infrastructure, especially our coastal cities, but we've also experienced flooding in upstate New York, in Vermont, and these extreme weather patterns that we're seeing. We need to start designing and thinking about how our built environment can be resilient to these changes. And then water. Water is really, really the big hot topic. You're seeing water footprinting that industry is starting to do from food production and manufacturing. Countries are starting to look at water footprinting. And the issue isn't necessarily just about quantity, but quality and how it impacts food. As you're looking at some of the current political events that we're seeing in the country right now, previously in Sudan and currently throughout the Middle East, we're seeing these conflicts around water. Syria in particular, those conflicts started because of a drought and then food scarcity. So we're going to see this increase. So on the consumer side, what we're going to see increase as well is product labeling around toxins, around food, what's in the food, what type it is, labeling, does it contain GMOs, etc. And then supply chain. Verification of what is in the product, where it's coming from, where it was manufactured, who manufactured it, and how it got there. We're really starting to see a lot more scrutiny on product claims through labeling. Here in the U.S., the Federal Trade Commission has come out with green guides, so interpretations on some of the labeling you're seeing on products, and they're starting to enforce those. No longer is it necessarily acceptable to simply slap on a product label and say natural. Well, what does that mean? So they're starting to define that and they're starting to enforce that. In the EU in particular, we are seeing a strong increase in toxins labeling and toxins regulations that we don't see as much here in the U.S. In fact, in the U.S., there are over 80,000 chemicals in the marketplace today in our products, in use in industry, cleaning, fertilizers, etc. Of that, only about 7% of those chemicals have actually undergone comprehensive toxicity testing. So oftentimes, we don't actually know what some of those toxins or some of those chemicals that are in our everyday lives are potentially doing to our health, which is why we're seeing Europe in particular take a lead on this. And I think the U.S. is going to watch and probably start to follow suit. So with that context and knowing all of this information, what can you do? First and foremost is really to be an informed citizen. It's difficult in our everyday lives to get beyond the sound bites. Even if you sit down and you watch the 6 o'clock news, it's a half hour, they're trying to cover world news. You really only hear headlines. You don't get to delve into sources. So I encourage all of you to seek out more information and seek out credible sources. So when I say credible, I mean looking at peer-reviewed sources, looking at government-released studies, looking at reports coming out of institutions, of centers from higher learning, because there are protocols in place to ensure that those sources are accurately replicable, their research is replicable. So digging in beyond sound bites and start to look critically, ask critical questions when you're hearing statements. Beyond that, be an educated consumer. So vote with your dollars. I tell our students this on a daily basis. Our students are very large consumers. You don't just vote when you go into the polls in November or during a primary. You vote every single time you spend your money anywhere on anything. You are supporting a company, you're supporting a business with their practices, their products, etc. So be a discerning consumer. Research the products, research the company, and support those that you agree with, that you feel strongly about, that are taking progressive action to address sustainability challenges. Read labels, especially around these toxins issues. Read labels and do research from, there's organizations such as the Silent Spring Foundation that do a lot of research on a lot of these toxins. Looking at FDA reports, dig in. There's a lot of information and it can be overwhelming, so pay attention to the things that you use in your daily life frequently. We're in our indoor environments very often, so looking at cleaning products, looking at products that you potentially air fresheners, your toiletries. We don't necessarily just ingest toxins. They can pass through our skin. So you need to be mindful of what you're using and try very hard to pay attention to those things. And in order to do that, look for third-party verifications, not just a claim that a company has made. Look for a verifiable certification. That means there's protocols in place and there's an objective third party reviewing those claims and doing research to ensure that those claims are accurate. Also, look for companies and products with social missions. The concept of B Corps is really starting to take off, and you're seeing companies that are being incorporated not only to generate wealth, but also to have an improved impact on society. So seek out those companies and support them if you agree with their products and their efforts. And lastly would be participating in local government. The other frustration I often hear that I have with students is I hear them complain often, but oftentimes they don't go out to vote. They don't show up at community meetings, but they're mad at a decision that was made. We live in a democracy, and it is our duty as citizens to be informed and be participants in our democracy. Whether you run for office, whether you join a committee, whether you just show up at meetings, planning board meetings, zoning meetings, school board meetings, and ask questions, raise issues that people aren't talking about. Sometimes they can be difficult conversations, but they can get to very interesting ends. And oftentimes, as we're looking at it from an energy consumption perspective, there are dollars to be saved. So we're helping be better stewards of our tax dollars as we get involved in these initiatives. One other piece that I didn't list on here, tied with voting with your dollars, is looking at where your investments are. Whether you have 401ks, Roth IRAs, you enjoy stock trading on your own, you can use these values within your investment portfolios. Oftentimes, if we're long-term investors in particular, we see better performance with companies that have a longer-term view of sustainability, of environmental and social responsibility. We see stronger performance on many of those companies. So conservation, that's probably the obvious one that most people can think of. So I like to put things sometimes in more student speak. So slay vampires, that's the vampire slaying culture on our campus with our zombies versus humans I see all the time. So students enjoy it when I put it in that term. But when I talk about vampires, I mean phantom energy loads. If you walk around your house at any given time, even though things aren't turned on, you probably see LED lights glowing from your TV, from your computer, from your Wi-Fi. All of these items, even if they're not turned on, are utilizing energy. I read a statistic, and I can't remember where it is, so I can't necessarily say this is 100% accurate, but something along the lines of 70% of the electricity consumed by electronics and appliances comes when they're plugged in but off. So the easiest thing to do is simply plug in all of these devices into a power strip and shut off your power cord. You can save a lot of energy that way, which translates to money also, so it's nice to keep that in your pocket. Another one is to pay attention to energy peaks. I mean, when I talk about peaks, it's peak demand. So especially as we're approaching summertime, the grid gets higher demands on it as we want more and more air conditioning. So think about things that you don't necessarily have to do during those peak times of day. Perhaps it's washing dishes through the dishwasher, or running your dishwasher for clothing, or dryer. You could look at doing those later at night, first thing in the morning, checking when those peaks are. You can save a lot of money. And there's also a piece on sustainability, because when we're on high energy peaks, what that means is we're bringing the dirtiest power plants online to meet that demand. So if we don't have to bring those on, we're also helping prevent air emissions. Using water wisely. That's an odd one to sometimes think about when we're coming from Rochester or the Great Lakes area. We seem to feel like we have an abundance of water. We do need to remember that that water serves multiple purposes. It's not just there for us to drink, it's there for us to recreate, both using for boating, fishing, etc., which means we need to maintain a certain quantity of water as well as quality of water. And as I pointed out earlier in trends, the water cycle is changing as the climate is shifting, and so what we can expect in Rochester and around the globe as far as what we've become accustomed to with water is changing. So being conscious of water consumption is extremely important. And that can be, shut the faucet off when you're brushing your teeth, or shut the faucet off when you're washing your hands. I've known some students that do the good old-fashioned sailor shower, climb in, wash your hair, turn off the water, soap up, turn back on, that kind of thing. Perhaps it's extreme for some. I make these suggestions really as things that you can do. I'm not telling you you have to do everything, but if everyone can try to do something, it makes it a little bit easier for the next step that you want to take. Landscape with intention. Our yards are actually one of the largest sources of fertilizers and chemicals. When we typically think of fertilizers or chemical use, we think of agriculture, but actually per acre, our yards and golf courses tend to be far more chemical intensive. So is it really necessary to have a treatment on your lawn every summer? I mean, I've never used one. I like dandelions, but looking at how you treat your landscape is a big deal, and what you plant. If you're planting native plants that can resist drought or the extreme weather patterns that we have because it's accustomed to those climates, it doesn't need the extra fertilizers because they're accustomed to the soil. They've evolved with the soil that you have in your area. And you can also landscape with intention around your house to help on your heating and cooling loads. If you think about your home in the summer and in the winter time, think about the types of trees you can utilize. So your southern exposure typically is the hottest exposure to your house, because obviously we're in the northern hemisphere. So in summer months, the southern part of your house heats up pretty quickly. So in order to reduce some of that heating load, you can plant deciduous trees running along that side. It'll provide shading in the sun in the summer, but in the winter months, the trees drop their leaves so the sun can come through and you can still get that passive heating. So there's really simple techniques that you can use around your house to help cut your costs and also reduce your carbon footprint on that front. And I put there last to support native pollinators. One of the things that we're seeing, I'm guessing many of you may have heard of the colony collapse disorder. We're seeing beehives collapsing. We're losing beehives, and they are a central pollinator. Another challenge, monarch butterflies. There's several initiatives across the country trying to plant native or monarch butterfly habitat simply so that we can try and provide some home for those pollinators, because they're really, our food source is reliant upon them. Actually, in China, in several parts of China, they actually have to pay people to go through and pollinate plants because they've lost all their native pollinators. And that's largely to do with their air quality. Watch your waste. Sometimes that could also mean your waste line by resulting from this, but Americans are huge trash generators. We generate about 4.4 pounds of trash per person per day. It's kind of shocking to think about that, but think about, and it's not just necessarily what you pitch in the trash when you open a wrapper, but how did you prepare your food? Was it to go? That means there's more packaging you need to dispose of. What did you buy? What did it come in? How are you carrying it home? So there's a lot of things that you can do to reduce that fairly easily. One is to first try and choose items that are recyclable if you have to discard of them. Also, looking for opportunities to reuse. I've listed some here through FreeCycle, Craigslist, donate them to your local thrift stores or whatever. Just because it doesn't have value to you anymore doesn't mean it won't have value to someone else, and you can keep it out of the waste stream. Upcycle. We have a lot of fun with upcycling projects on campus, including during Imagine RIT, we even do an upcycled furniture contest using old library books. It's amazing a new life that you can give with something that you're looking at every day and you don't feel like it has any value, but you can repurpose any number of things either for decoration or other functions within your house. And Pinterest is a wonderful source for ideas on how to upcycle different products. Properly dispose of medications. This is a big one. Our society, we have obviously become very dependent upon medications. They serve many important functions, but the challenge is oftentimes when those medications expire, what do people do with them? Oftentimes we see them flushing them down the toilet. Medications wind up in our water supply. So look in your area to see if there's proper medication disposal in your area. In Rochester and Monroe County, the Monroe County Eco Park offers a collection for medications, and what they do is then incinerate them at a waste-to-energy plant with very strong environmental controls to make sure those things are not going up in the air. But we really need to start watching this because this is also becoming an increasing challenge. Compost. If you've got food waste, hopefully you're trying to reduce the amount of waste generated out of your fridge before you eat it. But when you're preparing foods, food scraps, veggie scraps, anything like that, try and compost them. It'll keep them out of the trash, and you'll have a wonderful soil amendment that was free in your backyard. Or if you're in an apartment living, you can look at vermicomposting. If you have kids, they'll love this. Vermicomposting is using worms. There's a great book that's very kid-friendly. It's called Worms Eat My Garbage. It teaches you how to do vermicomposting in small bins, and you can just put your food waste right in, and within 2 to 3 days, if you've scaled your bin correctly, they've eaten through your food waste. So that's a fun project that you can do with your family. The kids can learn something about the recycling of nature. So there's wonderful opportunities out there to engage the family in these processes as well. And as I said here, when all else fails, recycle. In truth, when you think of the 3 R's, we say reduce, reuse, recycle. There isn't anything up there that says throw away, and recycle is the last one. So try and reduce first. Examine what you're purchasing, and do you need to purchase that much? Reuse wherever possible, and then look to recycle or upcycle. And lastly, well-being. As I talked about before, sustainability is really about human well-being, intergenerational well-being. So some of that is The wellness component, getting out, getting walking. So as I suggest here, just swapping one vehicle commute for an alternative, whether that's taking the bus or a bike ride or a walk, rather than just using that for recreation. Try and use that for function. See, can you get to work biking to work? I try and do it at least once a week during the summer, and I'm in the city of Rochester, so it's about an 8-mile commute each way. And it's a great workout as well, so it's a good use of my time because I get the gym out of the way and my commute at the same time. So looking for opportunities like that as well. Plant a garden. Food is at its most nutritious when it is first picked. If you look at our current food system, your average piece of food that makes it to your table has traveled about 1,500 miles to get to you, between the field to the processing plant to the distribution center to the grocery store to your table, 1,500 miles. So when we think about a tomato, that tomato was likely picked green. So if it was picked green, it never reached its full potential from a nutritional content perspective. So the tomato that you're going to pull off of the plant in your garden is going to be far more nutritious than the tomato you're going to buy in a grocery store, unless it was locally grown. So if you don't have space to plant a garden, though there's always options for container gardens, go to a farmer's market. So go get to know the local producers in your community. You'll learn more about the food process. And honestly, this could just be a personal thing, but I think the food tastes so much better. It's so fresh. Like the quality is just, it's amazing. Shut off the video games and get the kids outside. There's increasing studies starting to indicate that the disconnect of children from nature is leading to sleep disruption, is leading to depression and other issues, and it's not just nature, but it's correlated. So getting kids outside to appreciate the environment, get them active, away from the TV, no longer sedentary, it'll do wonders for their health, but it'll also give them a very different appreciation for the world and the environment in which they live. I've got try meatless Mondays. You could pick any day of the week to try and go meatless for a meal or for a day. Meatless Mondays is an initiative that was started by Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. Meat consumption also oftentimes tracks towards potentially high blood pressure, high cholesterol levels. So it was interesting to see this initiative come out of the public health school as opposed to an environmental school. But it turned into a strong collaboration between the health and sustainability fields, or health and environmental fields, because meat has a much larger footprint for production. Both from a water footprint perspective and a carbon footprint perspective. There's actually calculators out there if you're curious, if you wanted to share this with your kids. There's a carbon food print calculator that Bon Appetit, which is a food service company, has developed for colleges to use, but it's also helpful for any family to use. You can go on and select items that might be in your meal, and it's going to tell you what the carbon footprint of that is. The reason is the higher up the food chain you go, the more resource intensive it is to produce that food. So when you think about beef, for example, you've got to feed corn or soy or pasture-fed, and I think it was something, I can't remember if it was 10,000 gallons or 10,000 liters of water per head of cattle for production. It may be higher than that. The United Nations World Environment Program has statistics on water consumption tied to livestock production. So as we're looking again at these issues around water, realize that ties into our food chain. So testing out meatless Mondays or testing out meatless meals can have tremendous health benefits as well as environmental benefits. And volunteer to help. Getting active in a community and sharing your knowledge with others is so important. School districts in particular, when you look at our K-12 system, they have so many other demands on their time. They may not have the time or the resources to really look into how can they help their school become more sustainable. So get involved in the local school board, volunteer to help them with their, for lack of a better term, greening, their greening efforts, or within your office if you don't have any sustainability initiatives really underway at the time, volunteer to start a green team. And all that has to be is finding what I call a coalition of the willing. Are there others within your office or within your company that have this interest? Take a look at some of the things that the company is doing and see how you can help them save money and reduce their environmental impact. So that could be print duplexing, obviously opportunities for energy conservation. If you can find, even starting a recycling program, I'm always shocked when I discover many companies don't have recycling programs in place. But that simple thing, depending upon the region in which you live, can not only cut costs but be a revenue stream. For us at RIT, it costs us money to send things to the landfill, but we actually get a rebate back for our recycling items. So I try and encourage people just from a fiscal responsibility perspective to recycle wherever possible. Or, volunteer to help start a community garden in your area, or help organize a farmer's market, or volunteer at the farmer's market. There's any number of things that you can do to get out there, but that community engagement piece is so, so important. So I've gone through my slides actually a lot quicker than I thought I would, so I have left us plenty of time for questions. I think I might have seen some come in.
Well, and that's great, Enid, because some questions have come in. Thanks so much for sharing everything that you've shown us so far, and get ready for a few good questions here. We have a question from Emily. Emily wants to know, regarding toxins, you mentioned the importance of paying attention to toxins indoors in cleaning supplies. She's curious to know, what is RIT doing in regards to toxins in cleaning the campus? And she's also curious, a second question, she wants to know about outdoors. What are we doing about landscaping maintenance on campus? Are we attending to the impact of toxins there as well?
Sure, very good questions, and the answer is yes to both. Within our buildings, we actually have a comprehensive green cleaning program in place. We work with Rochester Midland Corporation, obviously a local-based company, to select environmentally preferable products, most of which are either Green Seal certified or a Design for the Environment certified. Again, that's third-party verification that I was talking about. In addition to just the types of products, there's also dilution control systems put in place. Oftentimes, I know when I was growing up and I was told I had to clean something, a little bit works, that means a lot must work much better. Well, that increases your exposure to things. So actually we've installed dilution control systems that have the exact amount of water and product that are needed per bottle, so that you're not overusing products. But in addition to those, we actually require all of our custodial services staff to go through a green cleaning training program that was developed in partnership between Rochester Midland Corporation and RIT's Pollution Prevention Institute. And so that program is, I believe, a day-long. It's either a half-day or a day-long certification process. So we have actually taken some aggressive steps in the green cleaning piece, and that is really so important. New York has really been a leader in the green cleaning area. They were the first state in the country to require a green cleaning program for K-12 schools. And if it's good enough for K-12 schools, obviously in higher education it's just as important, because we have those vulnerable populations and they are spending so much time inside. Externally, we are blessed with a lot of natural resources around campus, including wetlands, many of which are federally and state protected wetlands. So of course there's an eye towards the protection of the water quality there. So what we've been doing, we've instituted an integrated pest management program. So what that is, it involves training on our ground staff to identify problem areas and problem species, and they have different control measures in place. First, that starts with basically our threshold standards. We have a certain threshold for acceptance of dandelions and other species that might not look like a perfect green lawn. When we hit some challenges with different either pests or invasives, we do have to look for treatment. We will start with manual removal if possible, but then we do very controlled and targeted chemical applications where absolutely necessary. But there is a very strong program in place for that.
Thank you. That's great. It sounds like we're a leader in this area. We have a question from Thomas. He wants to know how we can verify whether or not farmers market produce is grown sustainably, and he wants to know about how to verify toxicity in those products. Is there any way to do that?
The toxicity question is a little bit harder, so I'll start with the first one. So in order to verify, the best way, honestly, to verify the practices of farmers is to talk with them. My personal hierarchy of purchasing for food goes local first, sustainable and local first, which does not necessarily mean organic certified, but if I can't get local, then I will go for an organic certification. So oftentimes our local small farmers have organic practices in place and sometimes go far beyond organic standards, but the organic certification can be a cost burden for them when they're smaller scale. So the best thing to do is talk to them. Ask them, you know, what are these products? Are they hormone free? Are they certified organic? What kind of practices are they using? And there's certain products that are very, very difficult to grow, particularly apples, without some sort of chemical feedstock. There are organic treatments, but they oftentimes don't meet that visual quality. So there are certain products that are very difficult to grow that way. There are multiple farmers markets within the Rochester area and across the globe that are producer only. So that's your first step. And then many of them, the farmers markets themselves have standards requiring sustainable practices in order for the farmers to participate in the market. For example, because I live very close to it, the Brighton Farmers Market has all of those standards in place. So when I go there, I'm comfortable with any product that I'm going to purchase from that location because I know the farmers market did their homework first in vetting those producers before they even allowed them into the market. In the larger areas like the Rochester Public Market, you really have to stop and talk to people. And to understand the production, you need to understand somewhat the growing schedule. So if you see, I was at the public market the other day, and there's blueberries, there's raspberries, there's strawberries. Those did not come from here because they're not in season yet. So those obviously came from elsewhere, so that person probably can't speak to how they were produced. So understanding what's in season so that you know it's going to be fresh and it is local, then you can ask them, how was it grown, what are your practices? They're oftentimes really excited to engage with customers around their practices. The toxins piece is harder. There are a few sites out there, and I think the EPA even has something up there, and I think the CDC might as well, listing food products that they strongly encourage you to consider purchasing organic because of the pesticides that do bioaccumulate. And I cannot remember, my general rule of thumb is I always purchase greens that are organic or locally and sustainably produced, simply because those leaves are the things that are going to be otherwise absorbing and in contact with pesticides and chemicals. So you can seek out those lists, and I will see if I can find one, and I can get that to Christine and have her get that out to the participants. I did give them a resource list for other pieces, and there are, on that resource list, there is some information about sustainable food production and different certifications within that. Did I get all pieces of that question?
I think you did. That's fantastic. It always seems to come down to food, doesn't it? Another component of food, Glenn would like to know about campus composting programs. Do we compost on campus?
Sort of. we send our organic waste to an anaerobic digestion facility. It's at Noblehurst Dairy. So it's being turned into natural gas and natural gas energy, as well as a soil amendment. It's not the solution that I want because we're limited with what we can actually compost, but there are currently not many options in the Rochester area for food composting. So we are looking in partnership with the Golisano Institute for Sustainability, both faculty members and students, and our dining services. We're looking into a couple of on-site composting and anaerobic digestion options. But because there's an infrastructure cost to it, we're really trying to understand exactly what our generation potential is, both from the organic side as well as the energy side of that. One thing that we've been doing, and this is a point of pride for me and really speaks volumes to the students that we have at RIT. Last year I had a student come to me very disturbed about the volume of waste in our dining centers. And not just talking about plate waste after people had eaten, though that is also a problem we're trying to address, but things that never even made it onto people's plates that were getting thrown out. And when you're in a large restaurant setting, your perspective of a large amount of food is very different than an individual student's perspective for a large amount of food. So it wasn't really being thought of at the operator level in dining services. So the student and I sat down and started talking about what we had and opportunities that we thought might exist. We partnered with FoodLink, brought them into campus and invited them in to explore our dining operations and have them help us identify opportunities to recover food that hadn't been served so that we could donate that to area soup kitchens. So between the partnership with FoodLink, Dining Services, and the student who started a group called Recover Rochester on campus, and I'm now their advisor, those students go daily into the dining centers and collect the leftovers, unserved, over-prepared food. Dining Services selects it, freezes it, they take temperature readings of it, weigh it. So Dining Services have been able to use that to help adjust their menu and food production. And the students then take all of those and personally deliver them to 4 different soup kitchens in the area. They have a 5-day-a-week schedule for that. So annually, we donate over 10,000 pounds of food to those area soup kitchens, and we've heard from them how much they love the program. One of the locations even had a birthday party for one of the students because they're regulars that deliver, so they had a birthday party for one of the students on her birthday when she had a delivery. And on the composting side, we still have a ways to go on the plate waste reduction because we do compost about 50 tons of food annually. And that 10,000 pounds really equates to only 5 tons of food. So we've definitely got work to do to reduce the waste on the consumer side.
Wow, that's a lot. And that's really exciting to hear that RIT is connecting with the rest of the community and spreading the wealth in a certain respect before it becomes landfill. That's great. And using student talent and ingenuity on top of that. So we've got another question about connecting. Melissa wants to know if other colleges are learning from RIT's practices, and as well, is RIT learning from other institutions how to lessen the impact?
Well, ironically, I'm actually giving this webinar from Boston. I have been out here at a conference at Harvard and MIT on International Campus Sustainability Network. So we've got colleges and universities from around the globe that are here, and we're all sharing practices and trying to establish a learning community around sustainability, not only within operations, but also within our academics. What we all recognize is all of these things that I've been talking about as things that we can internalize and do in our personal lives. Those are absolutely essential steps, but in order for us to really transform, and as we're talking about disruptive innovation, transform our economy and our society to address these goals that we have to address, we really need to change the way we educate and the way we start thinking about problems. Rather than the solutions that we're looking for after the fact, we need to start integrating sustainability into every degree program, into every learning experience for students so that it's relevant to their field. So that's what this session, this workshop has been about these last few days out here. But we also do have a much larger group. It's called, in the U.S., it's called the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. And there's both physical and virtual meetings with sustainability professionals and faculty members and students through that, as well as a very comprehensive database of resources and case studies from campuses. So one thing I always tell people that I love about the sustainability field is that while as individual academic institutions we're competing for the best faculty, for the best students, for financial resources, when it comes to sustainability, everyone is on board with sharing so that we can advance the mission further and faster.
That's fantastic. Getting the word out and learning from others is essential. We've got another question about, it's a question specifically about commercial buildings and composting, but I think it also speaks to the question of infrastructure. You know, it's one thing to be implementing all of these practices on a campus like RIT, where we've got all the power over a large swath of land and numerous buildings, but how do individuals in, say, a large urban setting like Boston, how can those buildings, those individuals implement some of these sustainable practices when they don't have a great big backyard to use and where they may be in a very tight urban setting?
Well, it's interesting because oftentimes what we see when we look at carbon footprints of individuals is or your water footprint or your food footprint, there's any number of footprints out there. The footprint is actually much smaller when you're in an urban setting, but largely because of your transportation options, the public transportation options that are so common, but also because of economies of scale. So for example, here in Boston, Harvard and MIT both have composting, but they're not doing it on their campus. There's actually a company that comes and services them. That's a service they provide for those campuses and for a number of other academic institutions and restaurants in the area. So when you start to get that level of economy and that level of demand, you all of a sudden have new business opportunities that are growing. And so we're seeing that it's either through the entrepreneurial approach or oftentimes what you'll see in the larger municipalities are regulations. So on composting, for example, San Francisco basically mandated it for the entire city. So they have very, very strict and very, very aggressive goals for waste reduction. They have a goal of 75% diversion, I think it's by 2020, and that's for the entire city. So they've mandated composting for businesses, for individual residences, for apartments, for restaurants, for institutions, etc. So there's different approaches that are taken. Here in Boston, we are actually learning about some very exciting partnerships between the city, the municipalities, and the institutions here around climate change adaptation and mitigation. After seeing what happened with Hurricane Sandy, Boston started taking a look at where their floodplains are and what a storm surge would do, and so they have started collaborating and they're starting to look at their zoning codes and their building codes so that they can build in that resiliency and require that for all new construction and renovation projects.
That's terrific too. Well, we have pretty much come to the end of our 50-minute hour here. The questions have been fantastic. If anybody listening still has more questions, they can be emailed to ritalum@rit.edu or tweeted to us at @RIT_alumni with the hashtag #MeRITwebinars, and we'll direct your questions to Enid, and Enid will respond as expansively as she has this afternoon to all the questions that came in so far.